It is remarkable what we can get done in 15 minutes when we are trying to beat a timer. Hey there, my name is Vanessa Kaiser. I'm a ranch girl turned social worker turned business leader turned entrepreneur. I love to explore all things organization, leadership, growth, inspiration, and efficiency. There's a phrase we use a lot around here called rhythmic living, which I define as the continuous cycle of assessing what season of life we're in and how we create habits, routines, and processes that support our current season. This show is for business owners, leaders, mamas, aunties, sisters, and friends who want to grow and live inspired. Welcome to the Inspiring Heights podcast. If you've been around at all this summer, you've probably heard me use the word time blocking a bit. And each time I do, I give this vague promise to talk more about it on the podcast one of these days. Well, guess what, friend? The day is finally here. I'm going to share my honest assessment with you of the time blocking methodology and how I've been using it in the past several months. Have you ever reached for a bottle of pain reliever to kick those cramps to the curb? Or an allergy pill when the pollen is flying and your nose just will not stop running? Me too, girl. Me too. But here's the thing. Allergy medicine knocks me out. And I would much rather be reaching for a natural remedy that treats the root cause and not just the symptoms. That's why I was thrilled when my friend introduced me to Earthly. It has worked wonders for me. As in, I haven't had to take ibuprofen for those stubborn cramps since I started using Earthly. Kind of worked. I knew I couldn't keep this gem to myself. Earthly Wellness is a family-owned company founded to help solve some of their daughter's health issues. Their mission is to change the way that the world views healthcare. Earthly believes that everyone should have equal access to all types of medicine and be free to choose their approach to their own health. Earthly offers a wide variety of products, from herbal remedies, my personal favorite that we use every day in our house, to cleaning products and so much more. Just head over to earthly.com/REF/Inspiring Heights to discover the natural way to wellness. Check out the show notes for a link and special coupon codes for up to 10% off Inspiring Heights listeners. Just follow the link and add the coupon code at checkout that's most appropriate for you. All this is linked for you in the show notes. I want to start with a quick definition of time blocking. According to ChatGPT, time blocking is, quote, a time management technique where you divide your day into specific blocks of time, each dedicated to completing a particular task or group of tasks, end quote. I want to say right here at the top, if you're in a season of life where you're thinking, time blocking might sound lovely, but there is absolutely no way it's going to fit into my day, please stick with me as we have this conversation. I have found some different varieties and aspects of time blocking that are incredibly accessible. As I've talked about before, I quit my job as the firm administrator earlier this year to pursue building a coaching business that I've dreamed of forever. It turns out that going from 1,000 miles per hour on a daily basis to having deadlines that only you yourself have put in place, which, make them a little squishy, it's quite an adjustment. I found myself feeling like concentrating was hard at times. I also felt like some tasks, like building social media posts, were taking far too long. The whole return on investment scenario. So I decided to try this time blocking technique that I dabbled in many, many times. And I will tell you with wild honesty that it hasn't been the end-all be-all, but it has been helpful in taking back my time and making the most of it. Thinking for a moment specifically about the work environment, time blocking in ways that I have been doing for this summer would have never worked for me before now. When I was a social worker, I was literally doing crisis response. You might plan your day, but you literally never know who is going to walk in and need your immediate assistance. When I was the firm administrator, I had a lot of scheduled meetings and such, but in between all of them were unexpected or unplanned conversations and fires that needed my attention. So while time blocking was a technique that I was introduced way back when, I could never really figure out how to make it work for me. Now, as a business owner who primarily has control over my own days, unless, the chickens or the pups need me, time blocking is a much more feasible technique. I've taken time blocking a few different ways to see which one would work the best for me. The first and most frequently used is to capture a weekly to-do list at the beginning of the week and assign an amount of time to each task. Then, as the day that the task is set to occur on, I set my timer for the allotted amount of time and get to work on completing the task. Let's walk through my takeaways of this approach. First, having the timer helps me to see if I'm on track to complete the task in the allotted amount of time. I can understand how this might be stressful for some people, and I will say I've alleviated that stress by reminding myself a lot that what I'm doing is a learning curve because it's new. So sometimes things just simply aren't going to get done in the amount of time, and that's okay. My second takeaway is a bit of a caveat to the first. I do have to be mindful when things take longer than my allotted amount of time to not be flippant about it. If I'm not careful, I can be like, that didn't get done in the 2 hours I thought it would take to complete, and then I'll literally spend the rest of the day working on it. I would say it's a work in progress to figure out the balance here between having grace with myself and holding a decent work pace. Takeaway 3. This approach helps me to decide in the moment what's actually important and what isn't. Especially when I'm doing creative work, I can get caught up in the twos and fews instead of keeping my eye on the bigger picture. But when I can literally see time ticking by, it's a visual reminder to stay focused on the endgame goal. Number 4, I'm just going to be really transparent with you and tell you that when my timer is going, an interruption like a phone call, a text message, or someone popping in can feel like a bigger deal than when my timer isn't ticking. I honestly don't attribute this to the fact that I'm on a schedule as much as I do to the fact that when I'm really focused, I know how painfully long it takes to get back in the same focus zone after the interruption. Also, in this vein, I am working to figure out what it reasonably looks like to set up uninterruptible time. I'm working to figure out things like setting Do Not Disturb on my phone or putting a sign on my door that says, "Shh, I'm busy," and communicating with hubby before I start my focus time that I'm entering into. That all sounds easy, but I'll tell you honestly, it's probably been one of the trickiest parts of this whole thing for me. And I attribute this mostly to the fact that for all of my career, I have been pretty accessible to other people a majority of the time because that was my job. But now that work looks different for me, it's requiring some pivots there. We'll figure it out, all in good time. Number 5, I hoped this approach would help me to have a reasonable plan at the beginning of the week for what I could expect to accomplish in any given day. I will say that while it's helped quite a bit since I started, it will take some more honing of how much time my standard tasks should take for this to really come to fruition. Overall, from this approach, I would tell you I have found that there is a time and place for it. In the more recent couple of months, I've been doing a substantial amount of writing each day. I've tried this version of time blocking for this season, and it doesn't work very well for me. Each thing I'm writing, more details on what this is coming very soon, takes a different amount of time. And because of that, I found that the timer is more of a stressor than a motivator. But that leads right into the second version of time blocking that I've been testing out more recently. And that is setting a timer for 45 minutes for which I can commit to focusing all my attention on the task at hand. When the timer goes off, I take a 15-minute break. Now, if I was an employee for a standard company, 45 minutes of work for every 60 minutes of the day would likely be deemed unacceptable, right? But here's what I've noticed, especially in a deep writing season. I get a little bored. My brain is working hard, but it's not like working in the same way that it's used to. So then my mind wanders and I find myself searching for random things on Amazon or checking my email for the 17th time today. Meanwhile, I know that there are 2 loads of laundry that need to be folded and dinner that needs to be started and pups that hardly ever turn down my attention. So the hope is that with 45 minutes on and 15 minutes off, I can actually be more productive in the smaller sprints. This method is fairly new to me, but I do have some takeaways so far. 1, working from home as your own boss takes a lot of discipline. And I have a fair amount of discipline, but I am finding in seasons like the one I'm in, I need a little bit of help. This helps me to buckle down because I know in 45 minutes, I'll get to unbuckle for a minute. 2, I feel way more productive during the days because I can say I've written XYZ and I've folded laundry and done the dishes because I'm using those 15-minute breaks to do things around the house. Number 3, interruptions during the 45 minutes are much harder than if I'm using the regular old timer method because my perfectionist side comes out and I'm like, so do I have to reset the timer? How long did the distraction take? How long is it going to take me to refocus, etc.? Again, I'm navigating this and I feel good about some things that I'm planning to implement to help reduce the amount of interruptions and my irritable response to them. Number 4, sometimes I don't stop at 45 minutes because I'm on a roll and I don't want to lose my words. This is actually why I was hesitant to try this method in the first place because I didn't want to have my train of thought interrupted when the timer went off. But I've come to realize I just shut the timer off, work until I'm spinning, break, and then come back and start again. Number 5, this method isn't necessary in every season. If you're doing heavy brain work or work that requires a great deal of focus but that you might consider to be a little boring at times, this can be a stellar approach. I just have a couple weeks left of my heavy writing season and then I will shift back into some really heavy creative days. And on those days, I will plan to switch to method 1 so that I can stay on track for a reasonable timeline. The last time blocking method that I've used in the past several months is around the house. It is remarkable what we can get done in 15 minutes when we are trying to beat a timer. 15-minute resets at the end of the day can leave the house cleaner than you could have ever imagined. The same thing goes for cleaning your bedroom or the kitchen or the bathroom. Part of why this method is efficient is the same reason as above. We see a timer, we know what we want to get done before it goes off, so we're not as likely to get sidetracked by the dust bunnies we didn't originally see or the drawer full of clutter that didn't make it onto today's list. Another reason this method can be effective is the same reason why 4-day work weeks can be effective. We want our evenings or our Saturdays back to do something other than clean the house. So we know that if we push hard for the set amount of time on the timer, we're essentially earning back the time that we might have had to otherwise spend on the task at hand. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not always a fan of the timer method. Just this past week, we were getting ready for a family visit, and I took my time cleaning the kitchen, prepping food, folding laundry, tidying the bathroom. I listened to a book I Marco Polo'd with a friend. I even watched a little Stu Thomas FBI. I tell you this to say, while I think time blocking can create a great deal of efficiency for us and is an amazing tool for helping us to accomplish a lot in a short amount of time, there is also value in working at a leisurely pace and enjoying the moments as they come. One of my favorite ways to clean the house on a Saturday is to do it slowly so as to enjoy each thing that I'm doing, taking time to organize that drawer or fold the shirts extra tidy. So as with everything else in life, there is a place for time blocking. There's a place for doing things at a leisurely pace. That, my friend, is my honest take on time blocking in this season. When it's appropriate, it can be a wildly helpful tool. And just like any good thing, too much of a good thing turns into not such a great thing.
And that's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Do you have questions, comments, or insights on today's content? I would love to hear from you. You can DM me on Facebook or Instagram, or head over to our website, inspiringheights.org, and click on the Contact Us form. I will link all those locations here in the show notes. P.S. If you haven't already, I would love for you to leave a 5-star rating and a quick review of the podcast. This helps get our content in the hands of new listeners. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and follow us on social media for rhythmic doses of inspiration. All right, friends, take a deep breath and be inspired where your feet are. Bye for now.